22-year-old man who was experiencing a mental crisis was shot by NYPD officers in Queens a week ago yesterday. Police say the man lunged at the officers with a knife and then refused to drop it.
The mayor says he's now visited the wounded man and his family, and the mayor now promising to release police body camera video today. Well, the mayor also says the man should not be prosecuted. This as the mayor now pushes for a new agency to deal with the mentally ill and the homeless.
So we're less than a month into Mamdani's administration, and already we have, according to Mayor Mamdani, a very controversial police shooting. As the local news media told us right there, a man was in mental distress. The NYPD ended up responding to a 911 call, and then, potentially for no reason at all whatsoever, other than the fact that the man was in mental distress, the police shot this individual, who, by the way, as of right now, did in fact survive this shooting, but Mayor Mamdani is visiting with the family and calling for no charges to be filed against this mentally ill person, and saying that this is a textbook example, a picture-perfect case of why we need the Department of Community Service rather than the NYPD in order to intercede in these situations. Now, of course, we have all the tells of a typical media hoax that is about to be refuted by body cam footage, including the graduation images of the particular suspect that the NYPD, by the way, says charged at them with a knife. But of course, Mayor Mamdani, a defund / abolish the police type, is on the side of the danger, is on the side of the person who went after the police. And now that we have the body cam footage, not only is this the most obvious and most justified shooting that you could possibly see caught on video, but in addition to that, we also end up discovering that the police ended up showing a great number of instances of restraint. They were on guard. They did not want to shoot this individual. However, he ended up busting through a barrier, which was actually a door, and it went after the officers with a knife, giving them no choice but to defend themselves. But apparently, not good enough for Mamdani. Apparently, we need a social worker there. So I think it's important to talk about this today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And right, Liz, outside the young man's home here in Briarwood, Queens. Yes, the mayor says he has visited with the wounded man and his family, and he says he has serious concerns, serious questions about how this whole shooting played out. He's questioning the protocols, which he insists need to change. He says what happened here is a case in point.
NYPD officers arrived at the home within minutes of the 911 call. The parents of 22-year-old Jabez Chakraborty said he was in emotional distress and needed medical attention. Immediately after the shooting, police released images of the large kitchen knife that Chakraborty allegedly used to threaten the officers. Mayor Mamdani today questioned the protocols that led up to the shooting.
So again, I really want to criticize the local news media for framing the story in which they did, because they're like, oh, within minutes of the police showing up to this location, they ended up shooting this individual, and there was a 911 call about a man in mental distress, and this is why Mayor Mamdani is questioning the police protocols, as if there's actually a justification or any reason behind what Mamdani says. Because obviously, when you look at the body cam video, what you ultimately end up discovering, and by the way, we will go over this in just a little bit, is that there is nothing wrong in terms of the protocols right here, and every alternative suggestion from the family, from Mayor Mamdani, from all these Monday morning quarterbacks would have led to a significantly worse outcome. And it's absolutely embarrassing that we have a mayor of New York City who's never had a real job, who doesn't know anything about administering a city, that's immediately siding with the danger, with the threat to other people and himself, rather than actually backing up his officers when they're 100% in the right. And instead, he's using this as an opportunity to pitch his stupid ass Department of Community Safety, which of course will be another bureaucracy that will be absolutely useless. And in scenarios like this, he will actually get those social workers killed.
I visited Chavez in the hospital, and there is no family should have to endure this kind of pain. Chavez has lived with schizophrenia for many years, and this situation underscores just how urgently we need a different and more effective mental health response system that will be safer for New Yorkers who struggle with mental health concerns, for their families, and for police officers. Chavez needs mental health treatment. not criminal prosecution by a district attorney.
Oh, it's going to be safer for this individual, safer for his family, safer for, of course, the police officers, which I guess technically would be true because they wouldn't be involved in this particular scenario. Instead, you'd have social workers getting stabbed up right there. But the audacity of the mayor of the city of New York to say, oh, I'm going to release the body cam footage. You're all going to see that I'm 100% right, but I'm going to prime you to believe that the police did something wrong or there was something wrong in the protocols before you actually see said footage is ridiculous and absurd. And the local news media dragging out the graduation image of this guy. Who is he? Michael Brown? Another media hoax that, by the way, Mayor Mamdani 100% believes in. And that's the thing about these hoaxes. The criminal justice related hoaxes, the Black Lives Matter related hoaxes, they cannot exist in the era of body cams. Once you see the footage for yourself, you'll realize that Mamdani does not have a leg to stand on. And in addition to that, you realize that he has to come out in force up front to try and prime you for this narrative that somehow something went wrong in this particular case, and that wrongdoing was on the police officers. So now I think it's absolutely crucial that we go to the body cam footage ourselves, because one of the things that we find out is that the police were incredibly cautious. They understand that these kind of domestic situations are among the most dangerous. Who knows what can happen when you show up to the scene? And obviously the NYPD in this particular case showed the utmost professionalism, despite the fact that Mamdani is trying to throw them under the bus.
Oops. Since I've been watching videos, I don't stand by the door no more, bro. I know, we just never know. How you doing?
Are you called?
You called?
Yes.
You coming?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. No, you're fine, you're fine.
Good.
So right off the top, you actually have a police officer expressing more awareness than Zohran Mamdani has ever expressed in his entire life when he says that he's knocking on the door, but since he's been watching videos about bad things that happen to police officers, he's going to back away from said door. And by the way, this is a perfectly reasonable response to the other things that police officers have to deal with, because as you guys might remember, the Sidney Wilson hoax, which was another supposedly innocent Baba Angel Aladdin who was gunned down during a mental health crisis, she immediately came out stabbing initially from the jump. So already these officers are appropriately prepared. And by the way, the family is now saying that they called for an ambulance. They didn't want police officers to show up at all whatsoever. So I want you guys to look at this particular scenario. Imagine paramedics that are not able to defend themselves with any kind of force multiplier device like these officers were with their firearms and with their tasers, and think about how it would play out. Then I want you to take another step back and think about what happens if you deploy a social worker to this situation. A 22-year-old progressive white woman who has a clipboard in order to defend herself, and how she would function in this particular scenario, because that is Mamdani's alleged solution to this particular case. So again, let us already take note of the fact that the officers are aware that there is a potential for danger right here. You have somebody in mental distress. While that is sad for that individual, that doesn't mean he can't be a danger to others. However, you also have the family letting these officers in, despite the fact that they will go on to claim later that they only wanted ambulance services and they didn't want the police here at all whatsoever. And they agree with Mamdani, defund and abolish the police, to start the social worker department because their son did nothing wrong except try to stab the police.
Oh my gosh. No, you're fine, you're fine.
Good.
Baba, no!
Hey! Put the knife down! 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 Move! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down!
So this again is another perfect example of exactly what can go wrong in these particular scenarios. And in this particular case, you have the guy that they're calling here for. He's not in his right mind. Again, we feel bad for this individual. We understand that he is in a moment of crisis, and he immediately grabs the knife in order to go after the police officers. And while the mother is trying to intercede in order to stop him, in reality, if you're the police officers, you can't take the chance of this person coming to stab you to death. Now, of course, Zohran Mamdani wants a social worker in there, a social worker with a clipboard, in order to engage in this scenario, and the family wants an unarmed paramedic. But I will also point out that while yes, you have a situation where the officer did draw his firearm, and the reason the officer drew his firearm in this particular scenario is because the knife's already in hand, he's already aggressing towards them, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with the 23-foot rule. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the 23-foot rule, it goes as follows. For most officers, if you have a subject armed with a knife and that subject is charging at the officer's full speed, the person with the knife will actually be able to make it to the police officers faster than they can unholster, draw, cock, or, basically take the safety off their firearm and point it and shoot, because of the fact that when you're going full speed and you already have the knife in hand, that makes you a danger. So in this particular case, the guy draws out his weapon, which of course makes sense because he's trying to gain that distance on the officer. But in addition to that, take note of the fact that we have a de-escalation tactic right here. You have the officer closing the door, putting a barrier between him and the subject as they yell commands for him to drop the weapon. So the officers right here in this scenario are being cautious, but they're also taking steps to not escalate this situation. They're matching the threat of force. Obviously, you don't want to get stabbed up by this guy. Doesn't really matter if he has schizophrenia, if he's plunging a knife into your face. But this is very notable right here because the idea that these were bloodthirsty officers with no situational awareness is betrayed by the body cam footage. The idea that Zohran Mamdani, a rich kid, theater kid communist, somehow knows more about these encounters than the officers that actually have to deal with them is absurd in every possible way. And again, I will point out that you are going to send a social worker in Mamdani's mind with a clipboard in order to address this knife-wielding maniac. And by the way, he has paranoid schizophrenia. He is in fact a danger to himself and others. A knife is a deadly weapon. Textbook case, sensible case. And again, you still have de-escalation from the officers, despite the fact that Mamdani is trying to rage bait.
Baba, no!
Hey, put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife, move! Put the knife down!
Now again, he's given multiple opportunities in order to drop this particular knife. According to Zohran Mamdani, you need to talk to him harder. According to the family, you need to have the paramedics deal with the situation. But as you can hear, he's fidgeting with the door. He's trying to get through. He has the knife in hand. And the question should be asked to Mamdani and all these stupid-ass communists, what the hell are you supposed to do if you're the officer? Are you supposed to take the stabbing because he's in mental distress? Are you supposed to be killed by this individual? Are you supposed to have some karate skills and maybe judo chop him like a movie? It's like Steve Rogers in this scenario where he could disarm him because he's a super soldier. Or are you supposed to defend yourself? And the obvious answer to that question is yes, you're supposed to defend yourself. Now, of course, I blacked out the video post the shooting because guys don't need to see that part, but make no mistake about it, they did fire multiple shots into this individual. Then, of course, they call the ambulance, they try to get this guy care, and as of right now, he's in the hospital. But make no mistake about it, the family is not victimized. This isn't proof positive that we need the Department of Community Service. In fact, this is a perfect example of why that department is an absolutely terrible idea.
The young man's family is furious. "We are shocked and outraged," they said in a statement. "We called 911 for an ambulance to provide medical attention for our son, who is in emotional distress. We did not call the police. Instead of medical responders, the NYPD arrived and shot our son multiple times right in front of us."
Now again, the summary from the family is betrayed by the reality of the video. They're like, oh yeah, we didn't call the police, we just called a 911, we wanted an ambulance, even though again, you can see for yourselves them letting the police in order to deal with and adjudicate this particular scenario. And of course, they skip all of the steps and say, oh, well, they just shot him right in front of us. For no reason, the NYPD officers just shot this individual when again, they gave him every opportunity. He kept advancing upon them, and this woman who knew that her kid was having this paranoid schizophrenic episode didn't do anything effective in order to prevent him from getting a firearm, and again just wanted some ambulance workers to get stabbed up, which by the way has happened in New York City recently as last year, where somebody who was just mentally disturbed decided to put a knife inside EMS workers because, oh my god, innocent Bubba Angel.
The mayor today was not critical specifically of the first responders, but suggested the appearance of the officers might have escalated the situation.
That is why I proposed creating a Department of Community Safety to build a mental health system rooted in prevention, in sustained care, and real crisis response, so officers no longer have to handle these situations alone. As I've said, when there is a violent situation, such as with a weapon, NYPD will be on the scene.
So he's like, yeah, look, the police escalated this situation. The police are the problem in this particular scenario. And then he has probably the dumbest comment among all the stupid comments that Mamdani made related to this, which is, oh, as I said, in a violent situation, the police will be on the scene. But guys, you watched the video for yourself. You saw how quickly this went from a routine mental health check to a deadly force encounter.
Oh my gosh. No, you're fine. You're fine. Good.
Baba, no!
Hey, put the knife down!
So what is going to happen when you have your social worker with the clipboard, your little 22-year-old woman fresh out of community college in this particular case, and then the guy grabs the knife? Are the police going to like snap in, teleport in that particular case to the scene in order to deal with the violence? No, this is why you need the police there. This is a perfect example of Mamdani's stupid ass ideology failing absolutely miserably, because even the situations that are supposedly non-violent, supposedly not a crazy scenario, even though, by the way, this was a violent scenario, they were worried about this person lashing out and doing some damage. That's why they called 911 in the first place, regardless of them lying after the fact like they are right now. But yeah, you don't know when this is going to escalate to a deadly force encounter. It is incredibly dangerous to show up to people's homes like this. And no, a social worker would not be a better adjudicator in this particular case. Bare minimum, you're just wasting money because you're sending a social worker only to call 911 later, but maximum, you're getting somebody hurt and or killed, which, by the way, has happened. We saw it upstate New York. We covered it on this channel, and it's an absolute disaster in every possible way. And Mamdani is a scumbag through and through for promoting another hoax in order to forward his agenda. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I happen to be 100% right about this case in every possible way, but I want to know your guys' thoughts down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Mamdani choosing to side with the criminal, choosing to lie for the criminal. Till next time.